Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, September the 18th, year 2019. This is show number 1229. As always, I'm your host, Shawn King, and joined by nobody. She's not here today. She's out doing bendy stretchy. There's a particular, wrong button. Wrong button, there we go. At each of the equinoxes, vernal and autumnal, her yoga class does this thing called 108 sun salutations. And they go and they do 108 bendy, stretchy things. I'm not sure it is. But she's warming up for that because it takes like 4 hours. And the whole class is just drenched in sweat by the time they're done. So on, I think Monday is the autumnal equinox. Isn't Monday? Monday's the first day of fall. So she's off doing that and getting ready for that. So on tonight's show, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim has his hands on all three of the new iPhones. The iPhone 11, the iPhone 11 Pro, the iPhone 11 Pro Max. And we'll talk to him about his initial impressions. We'll also talk about the other reviews that we've seen. Matthew Panzarino at TechCrunch, Gruber at Daring Fireball, Austin Mann's review from a photography point of view. I'll save that to talk about that during the Starting Point Photography segment. On the Starting Point Photography segment, we'll talk about is the iPhone Pro an actual pro camera? Is it good for serious amateurs or serious beginners and or pros? We'll talk about that on the segment then. MacMan says, it's echoing when I switch. Is it echoing now, boys? It means I'm getting dual inputs, which means, I think I know what the problem is, but let me just try that. Not echoing now. Okay, so is it echoing now? Do you hear an echo now? One of the problems is I'm using Wirecast. And Wirecast is a little buggy from the point of view. It often forgets the elements I'm trying to use, especially for audio. So that's quite annoying. So I'll see if that happens again, guys. I know what the problem is. Let me know, and I will fix it, hopefully. By the way, if you want to get my attention in IRC, use the name Shawn King. No spaces, because then it makes your text colorized in IRC, and I can see it very, very quickly. Generally, I'm too busy with other things going on to follow you guys' conversations on IRC. If you want to join the IRC, we always encourage you to do that. Monty has set it up so that you can go to the front page of the website at yourmaclifeshow.com. Right there below the YouTube video you'll see it also has a space for your name and the IRC channel. It'll pop you right into the IRC channel in your browser if you so choose. And don't worry about if you don't know anything about IRC. It's perfectly fine. You just type. People will be friendly and nice and kind and gentle and help you out whenever they can. So I don't have an iPhone Pro review unit. I'm not getting one. I'm not at that level of Apple. There's the usual suspects who get these things. Like everyone else, I'm interested in them. And there we go, Monty. Thank you. Monty just did that, and it's in a red color at the bottom of the screen. Thanks, Monty. And my IRC icon jumps up and down on my dock, so I can see that you guys are talking directly to me. I've got an iPhone 10. I think that's near the cutoff point. If I don't think if you've got an iPhone XS Max or last year's model, unless you were seriously into photography, not a professional, but seriously into photography, I wouldn't bother with the iPhone 11 Pro or Pro Max. But let me find this for you. This was a really interesting stat I read from Ben Bajarin on Twitter. Ben said that the vast majority, and this kind of makes sense, the vast majority of iPhone owners are pre-iPhone 10. 62% of iPhone owners came before the the iPhone 10. He says pre-iPhone 6. These are his estimates. These aren't hard and fast numbers, but Ben's pretty good at what he does, so I'm going to assume he's fairly correct. Pre-iPhone 6, 8% of the user base. iPhone 6, about 10% of the user base. iPhone 7, 21% of the user base. And iPhone 8, 23% of the user base. That adds up to 62% of worldwide user base is not on iOS 10 or later. I would say that means 62% of people can upgrade to the iPhone 11 or Pro. But I would only suggest that if your previous iPhone was inadequate for you in some way, whether it's the camera, whether it's speed, whether it is size, whatever it might be. Unless you're serious about taking better photos, that's the only real thing in these new iPhones that I can point to and say, you'll definitely see a difference here. You'll definitely see better performance. Battery life is great, no doubt, about on these new phones, but battery life is pretty good, all things considered. If you've got an old phone, an iPhone 6, where your battery life is not very good anymore, then you upgrade anyway, maybe to an 8. That's the big thing, is there's not a lot of additional goodness in these for iPhone 10 and iPhone 8 and X Max folks, unless you want a remarkably better camera. The camera in this thing, if you've seen any of the reviews, that's what everyone's talking about. Again, mostly because there's not a whole lot else to talk about. The camera on these things, especially the triple cameras on the Pro and the Max, are incredible in all kinds of situations, in particular in low light. Now, we saw earlier in the year, Google came out with, I think the Pixels came out with this thing called night mode. And everyone went gaga over night mode. And to a certain degree, rightly so. Certainly, previous iPhones suck in low light. They're just terrible in anything less than good, decent lighting conditions. If you're trying to take pictures of friends in a pub or at a birthday party or in a restaurant or at night, they don't come out very well. Google Pixel's night mode, I had a problem with it because it basically turned night into day. You saw these side-by-side photos, and here was a dark photo, and here was a bright photo. But that's not what I want for me personally as a photographer. I want just better lighting in night mode, if you understand what I mean. It's hard to explain that. But when you see Apple's night mode, then it makes more sense. It brightens up the bright parts of the picture without blowing out the dark parts. Austin Mann's review, and I'll dig this up for you guys. Austin Mann's review is really interesting because he talks about that and he shows off some really interesting night mode shots. And I'll show you an example of those from his review. So here's a great example of that. This is a wonderful photo. I love the way the light up in the lantern is the focal point and it glows on the old man's face, but the background is darkish blue kind of thing. It's a beautiful photo. In Google's night mode, it would make that look like daytime, and it would be a completely different photo. The effect of the photo would be completely different. So I like Apple's version of this. So if you want that kind of stuff, contrary to what the idiot at the New York Times said, the New York Times said, don't buy this, just use your flash. You're a moron. Flash probably wouldn't have done much in this shot, and if it had, it would have blown out the entire background and lit up the guy in the foreground with a really ugly white-blue light. Brian Chen of the New York Times, stop writing reviews about the camera because you don't know what you're talking about. Just shut up. So we'll talk to Jim about that. Now, we know Jim's a bad photographer, but he's the perfect guy for this kind of stuff because most people aren't professional photographers. Austin Mann is a professional photographer. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to capture light. He knows how to see light. I don't want to see reviews of the camera so much from Austin Mann. I know it's a good camera. How does the average person use it? Matthew Panzarino at TechCrunch did a good job. He went off to Disneyland and shot pictures there. And Disneyland's all kinds of places in Disneyland are very bright and beautifully lit, but also all kinds of places which are kind of dark with spots of light. And Panzerino's TechCrunch shots really showed off this ability to not turn day into night, but to brighten up a photo, to bring out the bright spots in a dark scene. Because as a photographer, sometimes you want the dark there. You don't want to crank up the ISO and have everything be really, really bright. And we'll talk in the starting point photography segment about how this works, how this happens, and why it's not good. You are not going to take the iPhone Pro to Le Mans, shoot the 24-hour Le Mans at night, because it doesn't work that way. It's still not good for action shots in the dark. And we'll talk about that a little later on in the show. As always, send us emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. Are you getting one of the new iPhones? If so, which color are you getting? We're talking to MacMan. MacMan's thinking about turning in his slate gray order for the beautiful green one. I would get the green if I was going to get one right away. If you've got an older iPhone and aren't upgrading, if it's not about money, what is it about? Why aren't you upgrading to the new iPhones? If you've got an 8, sorry, not an 8, but a 10, an 8, 6, 7, why wouldn't you upgrade? On air, yourmaclifeshow.com. I love getting emails from you guys. So we'll talk to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at Loop Insight after these messages. This is Your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. Thank you guys very much for joining me here on this Wednesday evening. Appreciate you guys being tuned in. On our phone now, we've got our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. A few minutes ago when I knew you were going to call, I had AC/DC cranked up, and I was having a beer, and I went inside to get a pack of smokes. And when I get inside, I forgot what I went inside for. So I naturally went to the fridge and cracked open a beer and came out and realized I already had a beer, but I was still at smoke. So, you know.
Well, the good thing is, because you already had one, but it's not like the second one's going to get cold while you wait, right?
Well, no, I had to drink the first one down really quick to make sure the second didn't get cold.
Exactly.
You know? I mean, it's been a tough day, Shawn.
You're a remarkably resourceful man, though. I mean, you got to admit that.
Why is that?
Because you figured this out on your own.
Well, I didn't even have to look it up on the internet. I just downed a beer and remembered all the way in. I just kept repeating what I needed to go in the house for, and I came out with everything I needed.
There you go. I mean, you can't ask for anything more than that.
Well, no.
So you get your hands on all three versions of the new iPhones, the 11, the 11 Pro, and the 11 Pro Max. I was surprised. I don't know why I didn't realize this before, that that the iPhone Pro, I hate these frickin' names. The iPhone 11 Pro is physically smaller than the iPhone 11.
Well, it was the same with the 10R and the 10S.
But is the screen size smaller?
Yes,
it is.
It's a different screen. So yeah, it is smaller. The entire form factor is smaller.
Yep.
Same on both models from last year and this year.
Yeah.
The dimensions of the phones are pretty much the same, you know, and the way that both of those 10S, 10R, and 11 Pro, it's all the same.
Yeah. The feel of them, you take them out of the box, take them out of the beautiful box the way Apple does it. It's a beautiful way of presenting these things. Do they feel any different? We talked last week about the matte finish on the Pro and the Pro Max versus, I think, the same glass finish on the 11. Tell me about how they physically feel in your hands.
So the one thing that I really have to do to figure out if the matte finish is sticky, which it does seem to be, to me, stickier than the last finish, which was pretty glossy, really. Because I used to set them on the arm of my leather recliner.
Yep.
Because at this age, everybody has a leather recliner. So... and it would fall off. It would fall off. I don't know why, vibrations, whatever, but it would slip off of the arm of the, because you sit there and you just set it up on the arm. And so I wouldn't put it on the arm anymore. I would put it down by my leg.
Yeah.
So now I'm in the habit of doing that. The past couple of days with the iPhone 11, I've just still put it down by my leg, but I have to put it up there and see if it falls off, which would mean if it doesn't, then it's, actually stickier than, but it does feel that way.
Because for me, I don't like putting a case on my colored iPhones because it just seems, why buy a colored iPhone if you're just covered up in a case? Even a clear case. I just don't like it. But I've had to the last few iPhones because of that glass back. They feel very, very slick in my hand. So I've put cases on all of them. I'd like to go without a case. Now, the colors that
you saw the picture that I posted a bit earlier with all three colors.
On Twitter, exactly. That's what I was just about to ask you. The colors seem kind of muted. Now, give us from left to right. The Max is what color? That's
That's space gray.
Space gray. And then the middle one...
is the green.
That's the green, really?
Yeah, and the other one is the black. Now, I had a friend text me about the green and said that he expected it to be a bit darker.
Yes, absolutely.
So I went inside and took a picture, and it was darker.
Okay.
it's not as light as what it seems with that picture because
Okay.
the sun was out and but I wanted to take a decent shot of all three in light. So um, it's darker than when it looks, and actually looking at that picture now, all three colors are darker than what they look,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
in the sunlight they lightened up a bit. So
Okay, that's good to keep in mind because to me that center, that middle one, that's the green. I would say no, I don't want that. Looking on Apple's website, the green is much darker, much more
yes.
more saturated than your picture. So, all right, good.
Yeah, no, actually, um, you know what? While we're, and I don't know if you'll be able um, to see it
But you do
while
it.
we're talking, but I will text you the picture that I sent him
Okay.
of the green inside. So I just texted it to you. That's
Okay.
the green, the green color um, inside, which to me looks a whole lot darker than what it did outside. And
Good.
actually, looking at the actual phone now, even that doesn't do it justice. It's darker than what that picture
Mm-hmm.
shows. So there,
Oh,
you just got it.
okay. Overall, would you tell people that the only real big difference from say the 10 and the 10X and 10X Max and all the previous versions is the camera? Are there any significant other differences? Camera and battery life
Oh,
seem to be the
well,
two biggest differences.
now see, now you're getting into a whole world of changes here because the biggest change to the iPhone is not the camera, it's not the battery, it's actually the architecture. So,
Ah, look at you being all clever.
I know, right? So the only reason that the battery can be that much better, yes, they did improve the battery and the battery technology, but it's the chip architecture that they changed, which makes sense why they brought out that guy to talk about
Yes.
all the things that they did in the chip, but they're turning on and turning off things in the chip, you know, at an incredible rate to make the battery life of the Max 5 hours more. I mean, it's no longer, when Apple goes on to a keynote and says you have all day battery. Okay, so you have all day battery. So basically, you can use it, normally in the run of a day, and you're not going to run out of battery. When they come out and say, give you actual numbers, like, yeah, this is 5 hours longer.
Yep.
I mean, now you're talking battery life. And most of that comes from the architecture and technologies that they put into the chips in there and the battery. So, if they just did the battery alone, you might have gotten, a bit more life. But adding in what they did with the chip, I mean, that's a huge, huge thing.
I think the chip stuff is really interesting, if only because this is something that you and I have talked about for literally decades. Apple does things incrementally, and they show these things off in increments. This may not be the most important aspect of the chip right now. It's going to be what's going to happen in the next versions of the chip, the next things they do. The UI chip that everyone assumed was going to be for a tile tracker. Now it's for better airdrop. That's nothing compared to what they're going to do with that next year, 2 years, 3 years on the road. I think the same goes for this one and their ability to squeeze so much out of these chips. And keeping in mind, we all assume that these chips are eventually at some point going to show up in a MacBook Air type device. Apple's showing this stuff off now for the future. Do you agree with that assessment?
Um, I mean, we could see a lot of these technologies in Macs. I don't know at this point. A lot of this stuff seems really, really focused on mobility.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where they're going to take this. I mean, if they switch to an ARM-based Mac and they brought a lot of these technologies in, would that surprise anybody? Probably not.
Yeah.
Sure, bring it all in. You can do. I mean, the things that they're doing with chips now it's just insane.
Yep.
And you want to test out an iPhone if you have an iPhone, and I've done this. Go to a store or see a friend that has an Android phone, a brand new one.
Yeah.
Pick a new one. Even if you have an old iPhone, pick a brand new Android phone and start moving around the screen and start tapping to get into apps and type and do all of this stuff. And there's always a lag.
Yeah.
And it's annoying as hell to me to have that lag. And obviously the reason that it's annoying to me is because I'm not used to having a lag, because the iPhone is so fast. Now, when people say, oh, all they did was update a chip, that's not much of an upgrade. Yeah, go pick up an Android for a while and then tell me it's not much of an upgrade.
Yeah.
We as iPhone users are not used to waiting for anything. So when you tap on something, it opens. It's there. And a lot of times we tap and start typing because we know that whatever it is, messages or whatever is just going to open up, whether it's on the lock screen or an app or whatever. Well, not everybody has that.
We forget that
not everybody has that.
Yeah. It's funny that it's that perception thing. We may have any number of complaints about this, that with our iPhones, but the other side has it even worse. But they don't know they've got it worse because they've never used an iPhone. It's right. The old Mac versus PC thing all over again. When us Mac users went to a PC and tried to use a Windows machine back in the day, you're like, why does it do this?
Yeah.
Why is this so dumb? What's this trash bin thing? It won't throw things in the trash. What?
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, we are used to a certain level of performance, and we're used to a certain level of design and functionality, and we tend to take that for granted. And I think at times like this, when you look at the fact that they updated the chip to an A13 Bionic and say, well, what did that do? I tell you, it did a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where you get your battery life.
Yes.
That's where you get the ability to process the cameras and all of this stuff. And because they're not just turning shit on and letting that on in the chip and letting it stay on. They're going back and turning stuff off when it's not being used, when they don't need it.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is on like a transistor level. They have billions of transistors in there. So, I mean, this is just, it's way over my head, I'll be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Same with mine. The reviews are in. I'm assuming your review is going to be in hopefully soon. Mm-hmm. Let's just talk about the phones in general now. You've had them for a little more than 24 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anything jumps out at you when it comes to, I don't know, how do you use 3 phones at once? I guess that's one of the questions I have. Are you walking out all 3 in your pocket, or you do a couple of days with one, a couple of days with the other?
See, for me, I do my reviews the same way every time. So I test each phone the same way every time. The only thing that's different is, in this case, the camera, which is absolutely spectacular. I mean, even I can use this camera. If anybody wants to take a picture, if you've ever taken a picture in your life, trade in your iPhone and get this one.
Yeah.
Because the cameras are just outrageously good. I don't even know how to tell you how good. As a matter of fact, for this show, I sent you 2 pictures
Yes.
to demonstrate night mode and how good it was. Now, I haven't put these on Twitter, and I'd rather they not go on Twitter if anybody out there has an inkling, because it's the inside of my house. So I took these today, and then I thought, holy shit, I got to send these to Shawn to show him how good this stuff is. So
Now,
if you see them, that's great, but please don't share them.
Let's respect Jim's privacy. He's giving these to us just for us. So don't anyone share them. The first shot, no one can tell what's in it because it's awful. But what was that? Which camera was that first shot?
So that is the regular camera,
okay.
And that is a shot of my spare bedroom.
Okay, on the iPhone 11 or the Pro?
No, on the Pro.
Okay.
This is on actually the Max Pro.
Okay.
But this is my spare bedroom.
Yes.
Obviously it's pretty junky, but you can't see that because it's so dark.
That's right.
You can see if you look the window shade.
Yes.
That's there.
Yep.
So you can see a bit of light coming in through the window shade.
And so does night mode turn on by itself, or do you turn it off to get this dark shot, or how'd that work?
So yeah, there's a button. So night mode comes on automatically.
Yes.
Right. So, and night mode will tell you how long you have to stay still.
Oh, really? Okay.
So yeah. So night mode activates and says, okay, it's going to take 3 seconds to analyze. So after you push the shutter button, you have to stay still for 3 seconds.
Okay.
Because night mode will say up top, it'll say hold still.
Yeah.
So you hold still after you take the photo. The only way to get that off is to turn the flash on or off.
Okay.
And then you can go over and tell night mode nothing. I don't want anything.
Yeah.
But usually night mode will activate automatically, and that's the way you want it, because if you're outside and you're having a few beer with friends, you want to take a picture, well, you want night mode to just handle everything.
Yeah.
Now, whether a drunk person can stay still for 3 seconds, well, we'll see. But so that's the first photo. That's what you would see with a normal camera.
Yep. So second photo, tell us about this one. This is night mode came on by itself.
That's just using night mode. There's no flash. There's no nothing.
And that's in the same place. You didn't turn on any lights. You didn't do anything like that.
There's nothing. That is just night mode.
That's pretty freaking amazing.
So excuse the mess, but that is just night mode. There is no flash on. As a matter of fact, night mode turns off the flash.
Yeah, yeah.
So there is no light. The only light is the same light that you saw in the picture before.
Wow.
That little sliver that you can see by the window.
Yeah.
Now, I do believe that the camera moved a bit when because I turned some the camera when I was doing the hold still and all that. So, but if it is, it's by a matter of inches, I think.
Now
it's not much.
Now I've zoomed in 100%, so folks are watching the video can now see 100% crop of this thing, and there's very little noise in it. Now I'm going to zoom in 200%, and I can just start to see some noise in the shot at 200%. But even then, that's ridiculous,
right?
That is amazing.
So it's funny that you mentioned noise, because when I take shots at concerts, what I notice is that there is a lot of noise.
Yep.
So when I take a regular photo of a concert, it looks like crap because of the noise.
Yep.
It's all grainy and, it just doesn't look good at all. So when I was taking that night mode shot, here's what's funny about what you just said. I put the camera on, and night mode automatically came on because it's dark. And what I saw in the screen was so grainy and ugly that I thought, this is going to be a horrible picture.
Interesting.
And it came out like that.
So the on-screen display of it shows you an awful photo, and you would think, I'm not going to bother taking this.
Well, and that's what the photo came out like.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So it looked awful. The noise and junk that was in that photo when I was taking it was awful.
And the other thing is that I'm sure Jim doesn't realize this, and a lot of other folks won't realize it. You said you had to hold that for 3 seconds.
Right.
You can't hold a camera steady for 3 seconds.
That's true.
You just can't. So what Apple is doing is taking, as I've been reading up on this, taking a bunch of photos all at once and comparing them to each other. They're taking them at longer exposures, at shorter exposures, and combining the best to create that image that you saw. So that even 3 seconds, where there should be a lot of shake, that should have been a blurry photo,
right, came
out really, really nicely, all things considered.
Well, now I'm going to start giving photo classes.
Jim's photo class: beer in one hand, hold phone for 3 seconds. Done.
That'll be $3,000.
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
But I think it's very interesting, and something that I don't know that a lot of the other reviewers are pointing out to average people. Yes, you're taking these great shots, but you're taking them in a way that for a professional photographer, we go, no, you can't do that. And yet Apple is doing it. That's what Apple's talking about when they talk about computational photography.
Yeah.
They physically can't get lenses that are wider, that can open up wide enough to capture enough light to make these shots. But what they're doing is using the 3 lenses and a whole shitload of math and creating these incredible images. And the other thing I like about it too, and we were talking this off the top of the show, it doesn't blow out the image to make it look like daytime. You can see your image and still see this is in a dark room. This is in a room without any light. You can see the situation, whereas Google's version of it just turned night into day. And I didn't really like that look on some shots, but your shot shows that, no, this is just showing a little more light in a darkened room.
Well, and I did take a shot of my backyard that I didn't send you. Maybe I should have.
Yeah.
Well, I can send you that.
Please do.
This was pitch black.
Yeah.
And yes, that was a wine bottle for somebody that I'm opening here.
I didn't know you knew how to open a wine bottle.
Well, I have this automatic thing that pushes gas in. And
okay. I thought so. I was going to say, you hadn't had a corkscrew in your life in your hands.
No. Let me send you this photo.
Okay.
And you can show that too. But again, please don't share this. Let me see here.
While you're doing that, let me answer a question in the IRC chat room. Macman says, wonder how that would do with, say, a Christmas tree. And that's really interesting. I had the same question. I asked somebody about it, and the way Apple's going to be doing this is that they will do a shorter exposure. They'll take a picture, and they'll do a shorter exposure picture for the brightness of basically their bracketing. If you know what bracketing is, they take a shot underexposed, a shot overexposed, and a shot perfectly exposed, and it will do a bunch of those and then match them up. So your Christmas tree lights won't be blown out because they've brightened the photo in the background. Everything will look really good. So like HDR, exactly, MacMan.
Now here's the thing. I did ask Apple about concerts.
Yes.
And they said that they didn't know if it would work on concerts because the foreground, that one section of the photo is so bright.
Yep.
And the rest of it is so dark, they didn't know that it would work the same way with that. And, I think that's fair considering. Oh, did you get the picture that I just sent you of the backyard?
Yep.
Now, That is my backyard.
Yep.
That is last night after dark. It is pitch black outside.
Yeah. And you can see it brightened up the area without blowing out your two little tea lights that you've got lighting up the path.
Yeah, no, that should change. Those lights, they're fake lights.
Yeah, sure.
They're solar,
Yep.
so they come on automatically. So the fact that they're on shows you how dark it was.
Yes, that's right.
But that was probably 9:30 last night.
Is there light coming over your shoulder from the house?
No,
Wow.
there's no lights on at all.
Wow.
Outside.
That's ridiculous.
It's pitch black outside.
I don't know if you read it, but that idiot Brian Chen at New York Times said that this is a gimmick that you don't really need it. Just use your flash instead. And as
my God. Oh my God. Oh.
And
now,
go ahead.
Now I did try a picture with flash.
Yeah.
And it was washed out.
Of course.
It was washed out. I took a picture of the room in with a flash, and it looked awful. So, yeah, Brian Chan can kiss my ass.
He brags about he's been doing this for 10 years. Whoop-de frickin' do. But
10 years.
10 years.
God, he's a kid.
No kidding. But he's basically telling people that this isn't really worth it. That if you just use the flash, you'll get similar results.
No, you will not.
Not even close. Not even possible
close.
To be close.
Now, I sent you 3 pictures. One completely dark. The flash picture that I took in there was so bad, and the night mode picture is, I think, considering what it is,
yep.
Completely dark room. Did you post the one in the backyard?
I did.
Okay. And you look at the backyard, there's no light anywhere.
Someone said there seems to be light on the other side of the fence on the right hand side. That's probably someone else's house, right?
That's a street light.
Yeah, okay. All right.
That's a street light coming on over top of the neighbor's house. But I wish I had taken a completely dark picture there as well, but I didn't. I just took, I came outside and I was standing by the table. With the table I'm standing at right now, and I was having a smoke, and I picked up the camera and pointed it in the dark and took that picture.
And the same thing as before. I'm showing the audience zoomed in 100%. There's, from my eyes right here, there's not much noise on it. I only see noise when I get really picky at about 175% and then at 200%. But even then, the noise isn't that bad. It's not awful, all things considered. It's incredible how nice this looks, considering, as you said, this was shot in the freaking dark last night.
It was pitch black. I mean, actually, the time is probably on there that I took it.
It's not on the picture, but it would be on your phone, yeah. So Brian Chen says, pictures look impressive. Some of the low light ones look crummy in comparison with ones taken with the iPhone 11s. But I wouldn't recommend you buy a new phone just to get better night photos. You could always just use the flash.
Oh.
That is, now, it's painful how stupid that statement is.
God, it's painful.
Because many of us take pictures not in perfect light.
I would write. Here's the thing. Look at what people do. Obviously, they take pictures. That is one of the biggest things that they do on their iPhones these days. Either text or take pictures, right? So where do you take pictures a lot? When you're with your friends. When are you with your friends? Probably after dark most of the time. I mean, you're out in if not after dark, then low light conditions.
Yep.
You're in a bar, you're at a party, you're somewhere, and a flash just does not work. So I'm sorry, he is absolutely wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to have you had a chance to read Austin Mann's review of the?
I have not. I saw that you posted it. I haven't had a chance to look.
His pictures are a perfect example of this kind of statement that he took some beautiful night mode shots. One in particular of a man on a Chinese canoe lit just by a lantern, and using Brian.
I was going to take that shot.
Where are you going to find a Chinese man in a canoe?
Well, anywhere in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. But that picture is a perfect example of why he's so dead wrong. Because if you'd used a flash on that shot, it would just have lit up the foreground and made the background completely dark, and you wouldn't have gotten any image out of it at all. That's why this kind of stuff is so important. Why, whether it's Google doing it or whether it's Apple doing it, these night mode things are so much better than using a flash.
Yeah, the flash does nothing for me. As a matter of fact, I turned off the flash years ago.
Yep.
And have never turned it back on. Because it makes all the pictures that I take grainy.
Yeah.
And I would rather have a picture that's dark than grainy. You know, at least if I post a picture that's dark, people know I can't take pictures.
That's right, exactly.
You know, if I posted that picture, that dark picture that I sent you earlier, I could say, look, I'm in the Taj Mahal. And, you know.
Really? Oh, good for you. You're on vacation. That's so nice. What, are you putting out laundry? What's that squeaking sound in the background?
Oh, the squeaking sound is brewing. She's playing with her new ball.
Oh, she got a new, because last week the sound sounded more like a bird. This week sounds like I'm doing laundry and hanging out in the line.
No, she broke the last ball, so we got her a new one. I'm moving though. I'm gonna.
That's okay. That's okay. Just letting the audience know what's going on.
No.
So it's going to be very hard to tell people. I read this to the audience, and I want to let you know too, because I think this is a fascinating piece of information. Ben Bajarin, a guy we both know, he says, with the reviews out, knowing a big portion of Apple's installed base is still on 3-year-old phones or more is helpful. He estimates 62% of Apple's worldwide user base is not on is on iPhone below iPhone 10. So if the majority of people are below the iPhone 10, they've got 8s or they've got 7s or 6s or whatever it might be, this could be a huge buy for Apple. If the iPhone 11 is the most common one, most popular one so far, I think the 11 Pro is going to be even more so.
It's going to be incredible, I think. I mean, so, you know, there are a couple of things that really interested me about during the keynote that I jotted notes about. One of them was obviously night mode.
Yep.
And the other was spatial audio.
Sure.
You know, so I think both of those things are reasons for people to upgrade. I mean, really, if you take pictures at all, if you've ever taken a picture, this is an upgrade.
Now, the next thing is the telephoto, the wide and the ultra wide angles of these lenses on the Pros. Have you had a chance to play around with those?
Well, I have, but you know, Apple showed that great photo of a guy standing there, and then when they backed up, you see kind of an arch around them, and then when they really backed up, you saw the whole stone arch and everything. I mean, that was beautiful. I don't have that in my backyard, so I couldn't I couldn't take those. So, but what in my notes when I looked back, what I wrote about that was that you could take pictures in tight spaces.
Yes.
Now, how many times have we been in tight spaces, like in a restaurant, for example, where you're trying to take a picture of the table of friends and you can't back up anymore, but you can't get them all in, and you're telling everybody to squeeze in. You know, for instance, you could back up the camera to a point where you could take those photos. And, you know, to me, that's not just, I mean, that's an important photo for somebody that wants that. You know, so
And it's a no-brainer shot too, and from the point of view of you don't have to be a pro to want more in that shot when your family and friends are all around that dinner table, all around that restaurant table. This is not a professional feature. It is, but it's going to be used by everybody in all kinds of conditions. Matthew Panzarino, in his TechCrunch article, showed us these great shots of him and his kids in Disneyland.
Yeah.
And being able to get in a bunch of kids all in one shot, or the kids and Mickey Mouse and Goofy and that kind of stuff. These aren't things that you think about as the parent. You just want to get the shot. How
Right.
easy is it to switch between them? Is it
it's right on the screen.
Yeah.
It's right there. So when you're looking at the camera and you look down at the screen, it's just it says 0.5, 1, and 2.
Yep.
And you just tap that button and shoot the shot. That's it. You don't have to do anything special. You don't have to get out of the main thing and switch to a camera. It just switches.
It's interesting. It's one of the few things that Austin Mann had a minor complaint about with regards to that switching, because you previously you only saw what that particular camera lens saw on the front of on your screen. It was blacked out on the edges. Now it's showing you all the shot that you could get. And he said that's a bit distracting, but that's because he's a pro. I think for the average person, that they're going to be able to see, oh, look, I can get even more of this shot if I just tap this button, or I can get less of the shot if I tap this button.
For people that haven't seen this, have you ever watched a YouTube video where it's, a shot like taken portrait, a video taken portrait, but yet you can see something on the outside? I think that's an effect they put on it.
It is, yeah.
That's exactly what it looks like. It looks like that. So you can actually see that there's some other data that's there. Now, here's the thing. If you take a pic in close-up, it will also take a pic in what's the next level up. So one time. And it'll keep that data for 30 days.
So it's saving that shot for you just in case you want to make changes of it. Changes of
so
it.
It actually saves 2 pictures for 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go in and make a change to that if you want, and then save that instead.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of reviews out there. Again, Gruber's got his, TechCrunch has theirs. Any one particular review that you like that you see as matching up with yours right now? Or do you not read the reviews before yours?
I actually don't read them before I post. So I haven't read any of them.
Okay, fair enough. How long will you take playing around with these things? Is there enough content there for you to take a week to write about this, or will this come up before the weekend?
Well, I'm gonna post as soon as I get off the show.
Oh, good. Okay.
No. Only because you said you better post before.
Exactly. That's right.
As soon as I get off. No, I'll probably post tomorrow or Friday.
Yeah.
There's a couple more things that I want to be able to do, and I'll tell you right now. Like, the first part of my review is that I mean, obviously, I was around in 2006 when the first iPhone came out. Everything that we talked about with iPhones for years was, well, what can we do on them? Can we do this? Can we, can we do computing things? And that's no longer an issue, because I think iPhones are probably more powerful than the computers that we have.
For a lot of things, yeah, sometimes.
So the types of things that we talk about with an iPhone are going to change and have changed. So, looking at photos and if all you want to do is surf the net, you could probably still do a 2006 iPhone and be happy, But, with photos and everything else that you can do with this, it's just insane how good it is. Now, I turned on, so spatial audio.
Yes.
Here's some, I don't know if this is out in any reviews or not, but spatial audio is only for Dolby 5.1 and 7.1 surround. So will you see a difference in spatial audio on the new iPhones with music? Well, in fact, you will, but it's not spatial audio that's doing it.
No.
It's the configurations of the speakers and the algorithms and everything else that's going into that. But I've actually had to turn the music down on the iPhone 11 compared to my 10s Max. I've had to turn it down because it was too loud.
I'd be interested to know from the audience, for folks who are tuned in, how many of us listen to music directly off the iPhone? Don't most of us use headphones?
No, see, here's, and I know this is bizarre, and I started this years ago, but I listen to podcasts and music on my iPhone sitting next to me while I'm typing, while I'm writing. And I know, like I said, I know it's bizarre, but I do that. And then I'll be listening to a podcast, for instance. I'll get up and go for a walk. I'm still on my iPhone.
Yeah.
I'll hop in the car, plug it into CarPlay. I'm still on my iPhone. I'll come home, put it next to me, start typing again. I'm still on my iPhone. You know, I just got in the habit of listening to everything because I don't need everything blasting when I'm working. So I always listen on my iPhone.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
I think that Apple realized that the vast majority of people use their phone not as a phone, but as a communication device to the internet and as a camera. Gruber has been making the supposedly funny joke. It should be called the iCamera. It's now a camera that has a phone in it. It's no longer a phone with a camera. I've always said that the iPhone is a great camera for a phone. From what I've seen with this iteration of the iPhone, I can now say this is a damn good camera. Full stop.
Oh my!
I don't need to qualify it anymore by saying for a phone. What Apple's done, what I've read, I haven't played with one yet, but I hope to soon. What Apple's done is for them a huge leap in the ability of this camera, what it can do. And we all take pictures. We may not all take good pictures, but we all like taking pictures of things. And
that was aimed at me.
It was. It really was.
It was.
But
here I shared so much info with you tonight.
You were so
and
kind.
You still find ways to insult me.
I do. I've got it up here on my screen. This is right here. Insult Jim. And I hadn't checked that box off yet. We're getting ready to wrap up. I was like, oh shit, what am I gonna do? I gotta find some way to I had to find something, dude. Come on. But I think that's the bottom line, is that this has now become a very, very good camera. And this has put another nail in the coffin of regular cameras. Point and clicks are dead. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, yeah, they're dead. Yeah.
Unless you need a point and click for a very specific reason. For example, we hope to go to Cairns, Australia, to go scuba diving next June and July. I'm not taking my iPhone scuba diving. I know I can, but I'm not going to. I would take an Olympus TG Tough camera. But that's really the only situation, very specific situations. But for the average person, point and clicks are dead. Mirrorless cameras and DSLRs are still very good. They still have their place. But for average people, man, that's going to be a hard sell for Canon and Nikon and Olympus to convince us that now with these new devices that there's something they can do better than the iPhone can do. I can't see very much for average people that will convince them to buy a DSLR or a mirrorless camera over an iPhone.
No. Now, if somebody is going into photography,
yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Go buy a DSLR and, do your thing and be a professional photographer and learn all of the f-stops and everything else that goes along with that. But that's not most people.
That's right.
When I look at what I was able to take a picture of I'm in my backyard. Let's say I was having a dinner party at that table, and I wanted to take a picture of
Yep.
people. I mean, it would have been incredible. There's no other camera where I could have done that I could fit in my pocket.
Yep.
And also text with. I mean, it's crazy.
I know this is a loaded statement, but I'm seeing it a lot from people. The iPhone 11 is more than just Apple catching up to Android. I don't think Apple needed to catch up to Android from the point of view of so few of us would switch to a Google device in order to get their camera, their version of night mode. I don't think Apple needs to catch up. They have to have feature parity, but I think Apple's okay being behind 5G, perfect example. You can go buy a 5G phone. It'll be crap. It won't be worth it, but you can certainly buy it. Apple doesn't need to catch up to 5G. Apple's got its own thing going, and all Apple has to do is do better than what they did last time around. They certainly did it this time around. I don't know if this camera would convince an Android user to switch to an iPhone. I wouldn't try to convince them of that. I don't care to do those kinds of things. But for us iPhone users who have a 6 or have a 7 or an 8, even a 10, if you can afford it, if you can find a good plan, if you can do it, I think the iPhone 11 Pro is going to be an amazing camera. I say Pro specifically, not necessarily the 11 or the Max, but the 11 Pro, that's going to be a huge hit. I think Apple won't break out numbers, but I think that's going to be the biggest seller Apple's going to have over the next 3 to 6 months.
Well, I honestly think, looking at what you get for the average user, I think the 11 is probably the best phone on the market right now.
Yeah.
Is the Pro camera much better? Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, can you take great pics and everything with the 11? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a kick-ass camera. It's a kick-ass phone.
For me, I always want people to buy something that's a little better than what they need right now. Yes, iPhone 11's a good phone, but if you pay that extra little bit of money, it's a couple $100. If you pay the extra money, you're going to get a camera that's a better camera than you are a photographer.
Right.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, let's look at me. I mean, I could buy the iPhone 6 and it would still be a better camera than I am a photographer.
That's right. Folks, been talking to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. His iPhone 11 review will be up shortly. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Shawn.
Talk to you later, buddy. Bye.
Bye.
I had to leave him on that note because that was the perfect line. And the frustrating thing with me about Jim, he doesn't want to learn how to get better. I've tried to give him easy tips and tricks. He just doesn't want to, and it's so annoying. I want to just smack him like, dude, you don't got to do much work. Freaking old man. When we come back, we're going to, in our starting point photography segment, we're going to talk about the camera on the phone and whether or not it is actually a professional camera. We'll talk about that and much more coming up in just a few minutes. This is your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. Thank you guys very much for joining me here this Wednesday evening. I screwed that up. I should have put up this graphic. Wait, hang on. Welcome back. This is Your Mac Life for Wednesday, September the 18th, 2019. This is the starting point photography segment of the show. Thank you guys very much for joining me here on the show. So, there's a lot of under-the-hood changes with the iPhone 11, the Pro, and the Max. The one we're going to talk about is the cameras. There are now two cameras, a regular wide-angle lens and an ultra-wide-angle lens on the 11. And then on the Pro and the Max, they've added not added, but they've kept the telephoto lens from the iPhone 10. And that was an odd choice because I would have thought they would have put the telephoto lens on the 11 and then the ultra wide lens, save that for the Pro and the Mac, but they didn't. So the question is the Pro and the Max a professional camera? Well, it's almost impossible to answer that question, if only because what's a professional? There are all kinds of people out there who have basic cameras that shoot really good images. I always tell the story of a guy I met many years ago, probably 10 years ago. And he's a National Geographic photographer. And we're just chatting, and for some reason I asked him what he was going to be doing over the next 6 months. He said he was taking some time off. He was going to be on vacation in the southwest United States, around Arizona and Utah and New Mexico. Oh, wow, that's amazing. Good for you. You're going to get some great shots. He said, well, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? He said he was trying an experiment. He was going to go to those places and shoot on a Polaroid one-shot. I was like, what? I said, click, one of those ones? He said, yeah. I said, why? You've got thousands of dollars of the best photography equipment in the world. Why would you go with this cheap camera? And he said something really interesting to me. He said, he wanted to get back to the basics of photography. He wanted to get back to just composition. That he didn't want to think about aperture and exposure and f-stop and shutter speed and that kind of stuff. He just wanted to take pictures. And I said, well, that's really interesting. Let me know when you're back. I'd love to see your photos. And so 6 months later, I think it was at a Photo Plus, I saw him again and he showed me some of these photos. Of course they were great. Yeah, there were Polaroids with the big white bit on the bottom and shaky kind of things. But they were spectacularly good photos. Why? Because he's a professional photographer. That's what he does. You can give him a Browning camera from the 30s and take good photos because he knows photography. So that being said, there will be pros who have in the past used iPhones to get paid. That's the definition of a pro. You get paid to do it. We've seen professional movie directors. Steven Soderbergh is the most well-known example. Just recently shot a movie entirely on an iPhone. So that means it's a professional device. It's good enough for professionals. Professionals know how to use their devices. So therefore, it's a professional camera. It means the word pro is applicable. But that also means it's applicable to every other camera too. But with these new features of the camera, one of the things that Austin Mann, I'll send his URL into the IRC chat room. You can go to austinmann.com. He put up, and I posted this on the Loop the other day, Halid's technical readout. Halid is one of the better pro photography apps out there. It allows you to control a lot of the things that the base camera app doesn't allow. And they've got a technical readout of all the things on the iPhone Pro that you have access to, that Halid can read through their technical readout. So they talk about the autofocus system and the focal length of the different lenses and the ISO and minimum maximum exposures and all these kinds of things. All these are pro features. All these are things that a pro can look at, understand, and use. For example, the back camera has an aperture of f1.8. And as we've said before, aperture is a measure of how wide open the lens can be. It can be a little tiny pinhole or it can be a big hole. And the wider open it is, the more light that comes in. So f1.8, that means it's a great aperture. It opens up quite wide. 2.4 on the back ultra wide and 2.0 on the back telephoto camera. So what Apple is doing with this computational photography stuff, because they can't physically make the lenses bigger, they can't make them deeper because of the size of the physical size of the phone. No one wants a phone that's that thick just to get a better lens. They're using their software intelligence and their CPU and GPU and all the guts of the iPhone to create these amazing images. As I said earlier, Jim said that in night mode, the phone told him to hold steady for 3 seconds. When those 3 seconds, the camera is taking dozens and dozens of measurements and dozens of photos, or at least the data from the photos, and then stacking them all together to create these night mode shots, which is why I anticipate night mode won't work very well with action shots. As I use the example of you're in France at the Le Mans 24-hour race. The nighttime shots you'll take of those cars probably won't be very good. You won't get any still shots of these cars in night mode. That's okay. Not many of us are going to Le Mans. But a lot of us are shooting in different lighting conditions. And what I'd be interested to see from a test of the iPhone Pro is what that difference in lighting conditions has. I would go outside and take a picture every 10 minutes as the sun sets to see the difference in the photos. Pros can and will use these cameras. There's no doubt about that. Can it replace a professional camera rig? Maybe. It depends on the kind of photographer you are. If you are a high fashion, one of the things that Melissa and I are doing is we're shooting some videos of her explaining some of the things in her job, things that she has to explain to each individual person every school year. So we thought, well, we'll take video of this and put it up on the school board's website so people can just look at the video and listen to her saying it. The concern we have, because they're paying me to do this, the concern we have is if someone sees me taking it with an iPhone, they're going to go, well, he's not a professional. He's not very good. He's just using an iPhone. Now, how can he know what he's talking about? He should have lights and a big camera rig. And we have this perception that a professional has a great big huge lens and a big huge DSLR to take these pictures. But pros come in all shapes and sizes, and pro cameras come in all shapes and sizes. So yes, I think the iPhone Pro in this iteration is definitely a pro level camera. You're going to be able to take pro level shots. You're going to be able to create compelling images easily. And to me, that's the beauty of the iPhone Pro and the iPhone Max, is the ease at which you'll be able to do this stuff. That rather than looking at your camera and taking a picture of your kids blowing out the birthday cake in that dark restaurant and seeing a crappy photo, now you'll just not worry about it. You'll know, hold this camera still for a second or 2 seconds. There won't be much blur, if any, and you'll get a better shot. That's where the beauty of the new iPhones are going to come in the most. For the average person taking their everyday shots, those shot on iPhone shots that we saw earlier in the year that Apple posted, those shots didn't matter what camera it was on. It was shot on an iPhone. But it's going to open up our performance envelope. We'll be able to shoot earlier in the day. We'll be able to shoot later in the day. We'll be able to shoot in different conditions. Now you can go into a museum. A lot of museums are quite dark to protect the artwork. Be able to take pictures of statues and things in museums or each other in museums. Yes, it's a pro camera. Pros are going to use it. Pros are going to make money using it. Pro video people with that ability to shoot with all 4 of the lenses and be able to see all 4 shots simultaneously and record 2 at once. It's going to be amazing for pro video people. Quick Take, which I thought was very funny that Apple called this thing Quick Take. The ability to take video while you're taking a picture, or take a picture while you're taking video. Going to be another incredible thing. I can't wait to get my hands on it. It's going to be a while, because up here in Canada, the bastards that tell us want to charge me almost $1,800 for the mid-level iPhone Max. So it might be a while before I get my hands on one. So, but keep your fingers crossed. Maybe I will. I encourage you to go to the Austin Mann website. His story is really interesting. Seeing in the Dark, I thought that the shot we talked about earlier with Jim of the old man in the canoe, that's a beautiful image. Austin Mann's last shots, I don't think were very good. They weren't a good indication of how good the camera is. These ones, I think, are really good indications of how good these shots were. Here's a great shot of him shooting inside a theater. He's on tour with Yo-Yo Ma, and the shot on the left is the unedited iPhone X shot, and the shot on the right is the unedited iPhone 11 Pro in night mode. That's just a huge difference. That goes from unusable, pointless, all the way to compelling and interesting. And I think that's going to happen for a lot of people, that you're going to see exactly these kinds of images from average everyday people. There's a shot of Mann himself. The shot on the left is an iPhone XS, and it's functionally unusable. The shot on the right, and you're going to assume this is all in the exact same lighting conditions, is shot on an iPhone 11 Pro, and that's the kind of image that you would want to show to people, or one that you'd be proud to show off to other people. Another aspect of it that Austin shows off is the high key. High key is something that not a lot of people know about, but basically what it is it allows you to blow out the background so much that it just becomes white, but save the details in the foreground. This is a really nice shot. Even the first shot is a nice shot, and he says that the texture and contrast in the first shot were really good. But look at the second shot too. That's a really neat. It's a very high fashion type image. Not a lot of people are going to use this in a lot of different situations, but every now and then maybe this is something that you could see yourself using as a photographer. Here's an example of what we were talking about, capturing outside the frame. With our iPhones now, that stuff on the left-hand and right-hand side is black. You can't see it. And Austin found this a little bit annoying, but I think it's kind of interesting. It allows people to see just how much their wide-angle lenses will be able to capture. So yeah, it's a pro camera. The next thing is, will there be pro software that goes along with it? Halid, Filmic, Moment. There's a bunch of apps out there that are very high-level pro apps. Once Apple releases iOS 13, these companies, Halid's already posted a blog post about how excited they are to get their hands on this. I think these apps will make this camera even more pro. Because once a pro gets hold of a camera that's this good, with software that allows them to control this stuff, you'll be able to control shutter speed, you'll be able to control ISO. You'll do a lot more with these camera lenses than you can with Apple's native camera app, which is woefully inadequate for the quality level of the lenses that they put on this camera. That's going to make a big difference too. I'd love to see the folks at Google, ironically enough, with their app Snapseed update for iOS 13, take advantage of being able to edit these photos in RAW and being able to do some cool things with that too. So don't let anyone tell you the iPhone Pro isn't a pro camera. You don't need to be a pro to use it, but I think if you've got an older camera, especially an 8 or below, you'll get a lot of value out of the iPhone Pro. I think the Pro is, if you like taking pictures, even if you're not a pro, if you like taking pictures and can afford it, I would say buy the iPhone 11 Pro. I think that's the camera that's going to be the best one for the vast majority of people. As always, send me emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow, excuse me, yourmaclifeshow.com, or send me emails to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. I like getting emails from you guys. I like trying to help out with things. This week we've got a comment from our friend Jason Painter down there in Sydney, Australia. Hey, Shawn, I'm a lucky public beta tester who's early access to Apple Arcade on my iPad. I thought it was a nice idea, but probably not for me. Boy, was I wrong. I saw no harm in starting a 1-month trial, and I played a bit of some games. Then I came across Assemble with Care. This is like a story that you play with simple puzzles throughout. It's a metaphor for repairing broken relationships, and it's a gut punch. It's rewarding and makes you cry. I so love these types of games. I didn't realize they would already include so many games in the service. It's much more than I thought. With thoughtful games like Assemble with Care and the size of the catalog, I doubt that I won't subscribe. Unfortunately, it's $8 Australian, but I'll still think it'd be worth it. In Australia, it's possible to buy iTunes cards on sale for 15-20% off. I will use them. It saves me some money. Apple Arcade, I think, is going to be the sleeper hit of this Christmas season. At $5 US a month, with 100 titles to start off with, and a 1-month free trial, this is a no-brainer. It opens tomorrow. iOS 13 drops tomorrow. You'll be able to access Apple Arcade tomorrow. You'll start your free trial. I think this is going to be the thing that Apple's going to get more people subscribing to than anything they've done in a long time. I've seen a list of some of the games. I've seen some videos of some of the games. There is something in here for almost everybody. Even if you just play casual games. I'm a casual gamer. My favorite game is on my iPhone is 1010 and Apple's Hold'em. Those are the two things that are on my home screen that I pick up to play all the time. But Apple Arcade's got a bunch of really interesting titles. No in-app purchases, no chasing around loot boxes, no nagging you to subscribe or anything else along those lines. This is going to be a huge deal for Apple. At $5, they're not going to make billions of dollars, but they're going to make a lot of money. And with 100 titles at launch and more titles coming all the time, there's going to be something for everybody. So I'm glad Jason confirms my beliefs on that stuff and says that that's exactly what he found when it came to the Apple Arcade. I've seen a lot of reviews from other people who have had a chance to play around with it, and everyone's saying the same thing. They're very impressed with the catalog on Apple Arcade so far. Got an email from our friend Lauren Lauren Finkelstein. He says, the Leprechaun Museum in Ireland, the National Leprechaun Museum, it's cheesy, but we loved it. He sent me a picture of him and his wife, Karen. It's cheesy, but we loved it. Your tour guide is basically a storyteller. I just love the idea that there's a National Leprechaun Museum in Dublin, Ireland. Our friend Scott Randall says, hey, Shawn and Melissa, okay, I was correct. But Apple would have to offer a lower price on TV Plus due to Disney's offering. No, Scott, you're not. There's no indication whatsoever that Apple lowered the price after Disney came out with their pricing. You don't know that. You're assuming it. It's a confirmation bias on your part. It's not necessarily a fact. He said, with regards to a computer for Rory, I was not aware he wanted the computer only for gaming. Perhaps you should discuss this with him. Dude, we have. My son, who was the same age when we got him his first computer, used it for schoolwork, making movies, recording music, as well as playing games. He says you can use it as an opportunity to spend some more time working with him, adding graphics card. You should also make it clear to him that you expect him to use it for other things besides playing games. In addition to schoolwork, he could use it for his art. Oh, I got myself hooked here. Yeah, we've had that conversation. Scott says, I'm sure you watched the Apple event yesterday. I usually don't get excited about a new phone, but I found this one different from the standpoint that the technology was interesting. I have no plans to buy new phones. I'm still paying for my iPhone XR. In addition, from what I've read, the iPhone 11, except for the camera, not that much different than the XR. Now, I find what they showed impressive, but I really can't see any reason for naming any phone Pro. What can possibly be Pro about a phone? The camera in no way can replace a DSLR. See, this is the problem that we have. People get into these narrow-minded definitions of these words. He said, what can possibly be pro about a phone? Nothing. But remember, your iPhone isn't a phone anymore. For the vast majority of us, it's no longer a phone. It's a communication device. It is a camera. It is a computer you hold in your hand. Monty was saying that the last time he checked his usage, he was using he said, just looked in settings on my settings cellular, had it for over a calendar year. I've used 20 hours, 25 minutes of call time, and then 9 minutes, Monty says, in the last month. It's not a phone. Don't think of it as a phone, because then you get caught up in the fact, I'm not spending $1,700 on a phone. I'm not spending that much money for a camera on a phone, because it's not a phone. He says, the camera in no way can replace the DSLR. Yes, it can. And it will for many, many people. It won't for a certain kind of pro. If you shoot sports photography, if you shoot motion, if you shoot wildlife photography, no, it's not going to replace it for you. But if you're a street photographer, if you're a still life photographer, if you are a photographer of people, this could replace a DSLR for you. I really don't think any professional photographer would use this for his or her main camera. Again, Scott, you're wrong. There's all kinds of professional photographers who only use an iPhone. They're professional, but professional is defined as someone pays me for my work. There's all kinds of people who are doing that. Don't think that a professional is just a guy with a DSLR. There are all kinds of professionals out there. He says, I have an advanced point and shoot with 30 times optical zoom. When I went to Alaska, I was able to get shots of things like wildlife at distances, which I could never get with a 2 times optical zoom. Yeah, you're right. That's a specific use case. That's a different use case than what most people would need or most people would want to use. But still, thanks for your thoughts, Scott. I appreciate it. As always, send us emails to on air, Your Mac Life Show, during the show. Sorry, yourmaclifeshow.com. Or during the week, send them off to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com. I want to send a shout out to all those folks who have re-upped their PayPal accounts. I really appreciate you guys doing that. There was for those who don't know, I triggered something in my U.S. PayPal account, and they had to shut that down. But they forwarded all the money to my Canadian PayPal account, so that's all figured out and fixed. So if you want to, you can go to the website at yourmaclifeshow.com. On the left-hand side there, you can scroll down and subscribe for $2, $5, $10, $15 a month, whatever you so choose. I'd appreciate that for helping to keep the show running. That's it for tonight's show. I want to say thanks, as always, to our good friend Jim Dalrymple, especially for sending us those photos. Jim's a very private guy, so when he said it was okay to post those pictures of his home, I thought that was a big deal, and I really appreciate Jim letting us do that. So thanks, buddy. I appreciate you letting us post those photos. Thanks to you guys for being tuned in, whether you're tuned into the archive or whether you're listening in live and hanging out in our IRC chat room. Until next week, as always, I've been Shawn King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!